catastrophizing. No, this is not me being hyperbolic or fear mongering, because I know that the fear of a world war is what everyone starts talking about after every single atrocity, after every conflict, every tense moment. That is what we always say, and it hasn't been true until now. It's not just Venezuela. Venezuela alone is a terrifying violation of international law on a scale that risks dismantling the era of peace, relative peace, I should say, that we have endured since the Second World War. But it is not just Venezuela. We have a government who is saying, yeah, we did this in Venezuela, yeah, we attacked this country that we have not declared war on, and we have kidnapped their sovereign leader. Yes, we've done that, and you know what? We're going to do it to others. We are going to do it in Cuba. We are going to do it in Colombia. We are going to do it in Mexico. We are going to do it in Greenland. We're going to do it against Denmark, a NATO partner. And sure, we all took it as somewhat of a joke when Trump suggested that he would go and take Greenland. However, we can't take those as jokes anymore. We never really should have, because he just bombed Venezuela, went in and kidnapped their head of state. Not only that, he's not even saying he's doing it to uphold some sort of international law or boundary. No, he's saying he's doing it because he is asserting that we have a right to Venezuela, that we have a right to their resources and their economy. He is saying that we have a right to them just because they are in the Americas, and he is claiming that we have hegemonic control over all of the Americas. Now ask yourself, how do we achieve that? How do we actually assert control over all of North America and South America? If you think South America doesn't fucking fight back, you're insane. But moreover, do you think the world just stops and lets that happen? Now you think the world might be terrified enough that they wouldn't try and fight us in our own backyard, and you might be right, but hey, what do you think the other major powers of the world are going to start doing once they realize that there are no rules anymore, that in fact you can go and seize territory that you want by force, and the world is not going to do anything about it? Well, they're going to do it too, not just because they want it, but because if they don't do it, now they're going to fall even further behind the power of the United States. It's going to be an arms race to seize land, resources, territory, all of that, in order to maintain balance and power on the world stage. And once again, if the US seizes Greenland, that puts us at war, or at least significantly at odds with a NATO member. And so then NATO has to ask itself, are we going to go to war against the United States because they're the ones attacking a NATO member, or do we just disband NATO? And when you disband NATO, what else happens after that? Suddenly, these smaller countries that have been under the protection of NATO are now open to attack, and vice versa, the more powerful countries in NATO, now they have a vested interest to do the same, to land grab as quickly and as strongly as they possibly can, once again, in order to survive the world order that the US is defining for us. And again, this isn't fear-mongering, this isn't hyperbole, this is playing out what would happen if the leader of our country does the things he says he's going to do after proving that he is willing to go to greater lengths than any president in history. We need to understand the only way we avoid all of that, we avoid a third world war, is if the domestic situation of the United States becomes untenable to maintain these assaults abroad. That's the only way. If the U.S. home front remains tranquil, the world goes to war. That's the reality. That's where we are right now. If you are a politician, especially in the federal government, and if you are not using every single ounce of your power to grind this war machine to a halt, you are complicit in the deaths to come. And I know that if you work in the federal government, you are used to people saying you're complicit in deaths, maybe even thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. But a world war in the modern era is death on a scale we've never seen before. We need to understand that, and we need to understand that now before it comes to pass. I don't care how scary and dangerous you think resistance is now. It is nowhere near as scary and dangerous as what you and your children and your loved ones are going to have to face once they are drafted into a military and sent to fight nuclear powers, sent to fight nations with people in the billions. There's no winning a war like that. It doesn't matter if your country achieves its objectives. There is no winning for anyone. It is death, pain, and destruction on a scale never seen before. We must do everything we can to stop that now. It's not even...
First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai Ba'Shem Rakakudash. Yahweh to this world ignorantly calls God. Yahweh Shai to this world ignorantly calls Jesus. Ba'Hashem means in the name, Rakah means spirit, and Kudash means holy. And that's on the Paleo Hebrew. Also give double honors to the other bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. And today's video, I wanted to go into how World War III is coming, and we're seeing these prophecies pop off hard. So you just heard that 7-minute clip of this guy here going into, everything that's coming. And I always, see these videos and I always see the same thing. He's talking about avoiding World War III. He's talking about what are we going to do? There's going to be mass death on a scale we've never seen. He brings up all these problems, and he said at the end, no one will win. And that's where he's sincerely wrong, is that there will be a person that wins. And that person, that spirit, that king is Yahweh Shai. Right? And the people that are going to win are the Israelites. Because after these kingdoms go down, the kingdom of heaven will be established. And that's what these people fail to see, is that this is prophetic. So let's deal with the scriptures. Jeremiah chapter 51 and I'm going to start at verse 7. It says, Babylon hath been a golden cup in Yahweh's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. And when you go into the wine, what it's talking about, the wine is symbolic for philosophy. Babylon here talking about America. So the philosophy of America has made the earth drunken, right? The nations are drinking down that philosophy. Westernization, Americanization, the American way. All nations are being influenced by America, being controlled by America. And these nations are mad about that. The nations have drunk of the wine, therefore the nations are mad. Right? They're mad because they're realizing that wine is not good for them. That the way of America is not good at all. And it only leads to death, destruction, and war. So the nations are mad. And that's where you're seeing NATO. Okay, you're seeing all these Eastern nations come against America, because they're realizing that the problem is America. And eventually this is going to lead to, as he said, NATO coming against America. Which I spoke about this briefly in a previous video, how, that prophecy is right around the door. And, even more things have popped off since I made that video, showing you how that's the case. So Revelation chapter 17 and verse 16, it says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God hath put their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth." Right, the woman going into the great whore, Babylon the Great, America, okay, reigning over the kings of the earth, right, because America controls the entire earth. Now it says that there will come a time where the 10 horns, which goes into NATO and EU, will come against the whore, will hate the whore, and make her desolate and naked, and burn her with fire. Going into, they're going to shoot missiles on this place, because they're realizing that this place is the problem. And that whole thing with Greenland, okay, Trump saying he's going to do the same thing over there in Greenland, NATO telling them, you touch one of our members and you coming against all of us. That's literally the prophecy being fulfilled. So Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua is moving, man. Call Allah Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, because, you know, it's beautiful seeing these things exactly how they are written taking place. You know, it boosts your faith to another level if you're really locked in with the Spirit. Now, he talked about how he's never seen a president like this do, you know, what a president is doing. Well, guess what? The reason why we see Trump so active is because he is the fierce king that is talked about in Isaiah 19. Isaiah 19:4, "And the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord of hosts." Right, the Egyptians here going into America, right? Scripture to back that up in Revelation chapter 11, it talks about how that great city is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, right? So it says, "And the Americans will I give over into the hand of a cruel lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them." And that fierce king, that cruel lord, we believe through the Spirit to be DJ Trump, okay? Because he is moving like no other. No other president is being as fearful and so patriotic as Trump. Okay, Trump just doesn't give a F. Okay, he's going out there, you know, guns blazing. So let's get this in Revelation chapter 11 and verse 14. "The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly." And that's going into world wars. Right, the World War II passed, and the third one is coming quickly. So, hey, no matter what this guy says about how it's not going to happen, well, guess what? Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai said it has to happen. World War III will take place, and it will be a bloodbath of epic proportions. It says in 2 Ezra chapter 6 and verse 23, "And the dead shall be cast out as dung, and there shall be no man to comfort them, for the earth shall be wasted, and the city shall be cast down." Alright, so dead people are going to be cast out as shit. Okay, the same way you throw, you know, your trash bag in the dumpster, or in your trash, you know, container, is the same way people are going to be thrown out. You know, just as regular trash. It's going to be a common occurrence, a common sight to see a dead person. It's not going to be shocking anymore, because death will be everywhere. It's going to be a time like never before seen. And the only way you make it out, the only way you're protected, is if you have faith in Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. So I'll leave it there. Hopefully this was edifying. With that, and give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua Ba'Shem Rokakudash, and double honor to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. Shalom to you, like Shalom.